Gradually around the world, we're seeing a kind of an emergence of waves of nativism and ethnic and racial nationalism and protectionism. Can you talk about how some of these trends that are playing out, particularly when you look at Germany, you look at the United States, you look at Italy, you look at even in Poland, for example, how does the UN respond to this notion of nativism and kind of this lack of, say, sympathy to those who are refugees and migrants?
Well, that's where the word Refugee Day comes in, when we start calling for support from everywhere, from all the countries, from all the nations that are trying to create those kinds of barriers today in accepting others. This issue of nationality or self-determination or protectorism from some of the countries trying to create borders where there should not be a border today when we are talking of a global world. We are continuing to advocate for open borders, for refugees to be accepted in other countries, because it's also a form of burden sharing. If out of the 68 million displaced persons, which include the refugees, as I mentioned earlier, these people, if not of the solidarity of others, they could not have been given the opportunity to move to other countries or even to be accepted by host communities. So we still call on the solidarity, we still call on that open borders from various countries, because anybody can become a refugee. Particularly in Africa, for instance, we have had situations where some of ministers went to international conferences, but because of a statement that they made there, they could no longer go back to their countries because it was their opinion that they expressed was not accepted by their own country. So overnight they became refugees. Their families back home were persecuted. They have to start seeking for many other means. We have had head of states who became, after being thrown away by a new regime, particularly with the various coups that Africa has done in the past, head of states becoming refugees. We have hosted a number of former head of state, first families that became refugees. So anyone can become a refugee overnight because of their opinion, political opinions, human rights abuses, and so on.
You talk about the leaders, but some people will say that, you know, the leaders in some instances have been punished for their stance, because if that's how the people feel, the growing nationalism is not just coming out of space, it's growing, it's a growing sentiment amongst the people. So for instance, in Germany, where Chancellor Angela Merkel, you know, tried to talk to her people on the need to take in Syrian refugees, she paid for it dearly at the polls. How do you suggest the leaders that they manage that balance where they're trying to appeal to their people, at the same time they know that it could cost them politically?
Thank you so much, Maope. The public opinion is very important, of course, but we also have the commitment of member states. We have countries, these refugee conventions, be it the African Convention or the UN Convention, they are ratified by countries. So these obligations are for the countries first and foremost, and they have to be implemented by whatever government is in power. Today it can be Angela Merkel, but tomorrow, if it's another leader in power, the person will still have to respect those international commitments. In Nigeria, Nigeria is party to the Convention on Refugees, and that's why they have been receiving, with all the support, they have been receiving a number of various refugees in this country. I just mentioned the case of the Liberian and Sierra Leoneans who have been very well integrated in the Djibouti and Lagos area. We have Rwandese refugees, Congolese refugees, Turkish refugees around Lagos who have been accepted by Nigeria. The same way, we also have Nigerians who are refugees in other countries, including in Germany. Just in 2017, we received close to 7,500 new Nigerian applications in Germany. Italy, we received more than 25,000 new applications from Nigerians. And particularly for this, in Italy, I'm sure you know the roads that most of them have been using, very dangerous roads, which we are discouraging people. But unfortunately, you still have this large number of people using these risky roads to go and seek for asylum in other countries.
You talked about integration. Is that the ultimate goal for the UNHCR? Is that what you hope to see will happen, or do you see a situation where things will calm down in those countries and the refugees can return?
Well, thank you very much. The ultimate goal is for refugees, and even refugees themselves, they will say there's nothing like home. So home, returning home is the best solution for the refugees. But of course, when they can return home only if the condition that led to their displacement has been removed. So if people left because of insecurity, that security situation needs to have been settled, to have been addressed, to allow now for return, for what we call repatriation to take place in safety and dignity. That is the ultimate goal. But when the repatriation cannot happen, then we also have to look at possibility for integration where they are, so that they are given a dignified life. They can have a new life wherever they are, be it in asylum or for the internally displaced persons, wherever they are, they have been displaced within the country. They should be given the opportunity to integrate there. And the third solution for UNHCR is resettlement, which means the person cannot yet return back home because obviously the situation has not yet improved. The person cannot be integrated where he or she is currently, and then we talk of a third country of asylum, which is the resettlement scheme. And then we also provide such solutions for refugees abroad.
Do you differentiate between political, people who have left because of persecution, be it political, be it violence, and and economic migrants, for instance?
Definitely. UNHCR, we work with government in determining the refugee status. We just watched Haja Sadia Farouk, who is the Federal Commissioner for Refugees, and the National Commission for Refugees' responsibility is actually to determine the refugee status. UNHCR provides the technical expertise and supporting them for the interviews and screening the asylum seekers who are coming in the country and determining if they can be recognized or not, because we cannot provide protection, for instance, for criminals. They have to be excluded from the refugee status. So that screening is done